Hello, this is Brendan Kelso, and today we will be talking about the important subject of multi-perspectivity, and we will be focusing on slavery in the Constitution. In May and September of 1787, various state delegates came together to ratify the documents of the new United States Constitution. This Constitution consisted of solutions regarding equal representation between the states and a strong central government. However, it didn't really address slavery, which was one of the most important issues of the 1780s. Many historians have different opinions about why the Founding Fathers didn't include this important topic. This video will explore arguments on this issue from 6 different perspectives, from historians and authors from various time periods. First perspective! So here's our first perspective. Our first perspective comes from Professor Sean Wylance. He believed that the Constitutional Convention not only deliberately excluded the word slavery, but also quashed the pro-slavery effort to make slavery a national institution and so prevented enshrining the racism that justified slavery. In other words, he thought that the removal of this word did not have a negative effect on slavery. He believed that the Constitution did all that it could to declare that slavery was not a part of the United States. He concluded that the ideas of the Constitution were not pro-slavery and paved the way to slavery's extinction in 1865. Second perspective! There are also some historians with different perspectives on this issue. Professor David Waldstreicher opposed Sean Wylance's opinion. He stated that if the Constitution quashed the pro-slavery effort, then why did so many clauses of it, such as Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1, support slavery and slave masters? Furthermore, he believed the reason that the Founding Fathers didn't mention slavery and make significant changes to it was that the southern states would not have joined the Union. Waldstreicher stated that the framers' neglect of slavery proposed barriers for emancipation. The framers had the ability to abolish slavery in the Constitution, but just ignored it for their own economic benefit. Third perspective. Our third perspective comes from Thurgood Marshall. And Thurgood Marshall had a very similar view of the topic with Waldstreicher. He argued that the Constitution as originally written was profoundly racist and that the Founding Fathers intentionally ignored the interests of slaves, thus they compromised individual liberty for selfish economic interests. He believed that Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 of the Constitution negatively impacted slaves by preventing the removal of the Atlantic slave trade for 20 years. This was detrimental to slavery and provided a halt towards emancipation. At the end of his thesis, he concluded that the United States was in fact founded on racist principles. This is exactly the opposite of what Sean Wylance said in his article for the New York Times, which I mentioned earlier in the video. He had a very negative outlook on the Fathers and perceived them differently from other historians like Sean Wylance. Fourth perspective. Historians David Azra and Stephen Mintz thought that the lack of the word slavery in the Constitution had to do mostly with the fragility of the United States during that time. And unlike Marshall and Waldstreicher, they had a more forgiving view of the Founding Fathers. So, just then, we just used corroboration to compare the 3 historians, and that's a very important historical perspective-taking skill. So, furthermore, the 2 historians who I just mentioned really understood how difficult it was to make large changes regarding slavery. They were kind of nervous about another revolution between the states because they believed it would destroy the nation both politically and economically. Also, their commitments to rights, liberty, and principles of liberal government and harmony between the states prevented them from making a big move against slavery. In other words, the framers were just too busy with other issues to deal with the issue of slavery expansively. And furthermore, the substantial investment of Southern founders in slave-based staple agriculture and their deep-seated racial prejudice posed even more barriers towards emancipation. Here comes James Madison. It is also important to understand and address the Founding Fathers' ideas regarding this issue. After the Great Compromise was approved, Virginian delegate James Madison wrote, "The real difference of interest lies not between the large and small, but between the northern and southern states." And after the Constitution and the Great Compromise, the framers knew that the United States was hardly perfect and free, and they knew there would be a large amount of compromises to sign and wars to fight between the states to make large advances to the abolishment of slavery. And now a word from historian Brendan Kelso. Now check this out. That argument by Madison relates to the argument made by the 2 historians Azra and Mintz. Both of those historians believe that the U.S. had a large amount of work to do to finally abolish slavery, and both believe that the northern and southern states were incredibly divided in terms of those issues. Now, from these perspectives, we can create an argument. The writers of the Constitutions knew that America was a weak and newly formed country, and it was more important for them to appease southern states than to provide more freedom for the slaves. They did not have time to deal with the issues of slavery and were more focused on the unity of the colonies and their economic issues. Now that's interesting. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video.